Here in our next set of letters, the second one I wanted to look at, these are two people inside the walls, and perhaps one of them is a bandito who already tried to escape and was brought back, and is now back in the city and is trying to sow dissent from within. She writes to Pierre, "Your blackened hands is a dead giveaway that your work is done below the towers. You get bread every 7 days and never say a word. But the black hands that take the bread tell me everything I need to know about your day. You work in death. Sorry, you work in glory. I'm sure it's lonely down there, saddened by the gone as you bend and twist their gravestones. I'm sure you see their faces or remember your encounters with them. We all miss them, but you have to see them all off. I'm sure it feels wrong at times. I'd love to talk about that too." So here we see two more jobs within the city of Dema. One, a baker who's writing this letter, and the other is essentially a grave digger, if you can call it that. Someone who deals with the glorious gone after they are dead, the empty vessels. Now, not much is revealed about what exactly he's doing because those who don't do the work don't seem to know what exactly is going on there. But what's interesting, which probably stood out to you too, is this detail right at the beginning. Your blackened hands are a dead giveaway that your work is done below the towers. Who else prominently has blackened hands in the Dema story? Clancy. Not only Clancy, but also the bishops. Right? We see this throughout as we see them, but also in Jumpsuit when he smears Tyler or Clancy with his hands. They're blackened. So this raises a whole bunch of questions. Is there any relation between the blackened hands that Tyler has and these people doing their work? Is there also a relation between Tyler having blackened hands, but his neck isn't blackened, or vice versa? Obviously, we've long been under the understanding, for the most part, that the black color we see on Clancy is a result of him being smeared and under the control of the bishops. So they smear his neck, and then it travels down his arms to his hands, and and so forth. But there's also other indications that that's not quite the case because we've seen his neck blackened and his hands, and we've seen that spreading from his hands and from his neck simultaneously rather than it starting at his neck and then going down to his hands. Especially during the Scaled and Icy era, we saw this. We also saw a ritual during the Scaled and Icy era, during the performance of Message Man, in which he puts black paint on his hands. So all of this has a lot of questions because now we know that this blackening of the hands has some relation to the work with the glorious gone, with the empty vessels after they're dead. So is there a connection between the two? Is it just that when you're smeared and start decaying from that, like being smeared is a method of killing them, killing the citizens, and so after they're smeared they slowly begin to die, and then when they're fully dead they're covered in this, they're fully blackened, right, by this death, and so those who work with them also get that on their hands as a result. That could be as well. I'm not necessarily saying that because Clancy's hands are blackened, he must have been working with the dead or anything like that. But we also don't know what his job was in Dema. Again, unless I'm misremembering, we don't know what he was doing, what his routines of the day were. So maybe he was. Maybe that's part of what prompted him to so fully rebel because it was very much there. What was also interesting is here we're seeing, like before, right? We saw a soldier and a gardener, and the gardener was reaching out to the soldier and saying, you're one of the more trusted citizens. You're working in a more important position, whether it's guarding or here disposing of the dead vessels, something which is very central and almost religious about these practices at Dema in Dema. And here we have a baker reaching out to them, and so it's people who are a bit more removed from the center and who are trying to get in there and get the seeds of rebellion sown in that center. So there, is parallel to what we were seeing before. Let's look at the response. Pierre writes, "Dear Carta, if you only knew how long I spend washing my hands, you would know how embarrassed I am. They don't want anyone to know what we do down there. There were even laws written about what we inhale and how deeply our skin gets stained. You're right. It's an odd daily ritual down in the cellar, manipulating fire and elements to craft a monument for the latest glorious gone. Now, we kind of saw this manipulating fire and elements, etc., in the music video for Nico and the Niners. That could very well be what we see them doing during that ceremony. And perhaps all the people in that ceremony are the I'm just going to call them grave diggers, whatever Pierre's job specifically is called, disposing of the gone. I can tell you that after this many years down here, the glory has indeed faded. It is only sadness. There was a time when I believed it was truth, but that time passed, and only stains remain. I want to teach you what I know. Even more, I want to teach you how I believe we can break the cycle. This is significant because obviously this is someone who has a very intimate grasp on the workings of what is at the center of this vialism. We know the story isn't over. Obviously, we've known since the Paladin Strait music video came out that the story is not over. My question is, where's it going to go next? Because there's a lot to unpack here. And I don't think it could be done even if we got a whole second album, although it wouldn't be the second album. But if we got a second part to Clancy, let's just say, and three more lore videos from that, don't think we could fully unpack all the details here. I think the story could have ended and ended well at the end of Paladin Strait if they wanted to move on to something else. After that music video came out, releasing all of these letters with all of these hints at a further set of details and world building and all sorts of stuff, it just raises a bunch of questions which we either will never see answered or there's going to have to be a lot more to the story to answer all of them. Now, perhaps not all of that is going to come in the form of visual media or more music videos and so on. I think that's fair to say. I don't think that it would need to. Obviously, they've been doing stuff with written media for a while. They have Clancy's journal full of all these letters, which add so much to the story. Some of which we see just illustrated in the music videos. Some of which tell the same story, but others give a lot more context about the city. So this isn't necessarily new that we're getting more context about the city. What is new is that we're getting it from figures other than Clancy. This is an individual member of dema. He isn't even a bandito at this point. He has an idea of how to break the cycle. This isn't coming from Tyler or the Torchbearer. This is coming from the banditos themselves. And I feel like for that to happen and for that to make sense from a narrative standpoint, we would need to see a lot more of the individual banditos themselves. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky about that. I'm sure it could be done in a way in which we don't really learn that much more about different individuals. It's kind of just the banditos as a whole, as a unit, come up with an idea to break the cycle. And perhaps they are the ones who free Clancy as he's on trial or as he's in prison back in Dema or something like that.